There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Order. Honorable members, I wish to announce that the vacancy which occurred in the National Assembly due to the passing of Mr. Bonisile Alfred Nesi has been filled by the nomination of Ms. Nomhle Beauty Dambuza with effect from the 14th October 2016. The Honorable Member has made the solemn affirmation in the Deputy Speaker's office. The Secretary will read the first to fifth orders together.
Medium-term budget policy statement, introduction, adjustments, appropriation bill, introduction, rates and monetary amounts and amendment of revenue laws bill, introduction, taxation laws amendment bill, introduction, finance bill.
I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Molweni, Dumelang, Goeiemiddag, Mr. President, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Deputy President, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Chief Whip of the major political party, leaders of all political parties, the Governor and Deputy Governors of the Reserve Bank, the MECs for Finance, representing their premiers and provinces, representatives of organized business and labor and civil society and faith communities, honorable members. A few minutes ago, I went on your behalf to meet a group of students who wanted to hear your voice, wanted you to hear their voices. So I bring you their greetings as well. It is my privilege, Deputy Speaker, to present the 20th Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement for consideration of the House and all South Africans. I also table, as you see in this bundle, the adjusted estimates of national expenditure, the 2016 Adjustments Appropriation Bill, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Taxation Laws Amendment Bill, Tax Administration Laws Amendment Bill, the Rates and Monetary Amounts and Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill, and its accompanying Administration Bill, and the Finance Bill. Honorable members, the first MTBPS was tabled interestingly in December 1997, during the term of President Mandela's government. Its purpose, as was stated at the time, and I quote, it describes government's goals and objectives. It explains the economic environment within which those objectives are being addressed and projects the total level of resources that will be available. It analyzes the trade-offs and choices that the nation confronts, just as we do today, in addressing its reconstruction and development priorities. In keeping with our commitment to open, transparent, and cooperative policymaking, it invites the nation to share with government the important choices that must be made, end of quotation. Our goals, honorable members, remain the same. to promote social transformation and more inclusive economic growth, to achieve a much better life and opportunities for all South Africans. In those years, the economic environment, like today, is uncertain or was uncertain. The MTBPS must ensure that we have a sustainable and resilient budget, and that we leave future generations with a vibrant democracy, a society at peace, and progress in respect of all of the sustainable development goals that we've jointly agreed upon as a planet, but without any unmanageable debt or extreme poverty still remaining in our country. No one should be left behind in our march to a better life for all South Africans. The MTBPS reports to Parliament and the public on the planned use of taxpayers' funds, because it is their funds that we are using, not ours, measures to secure our fiscal and financial position, and steps to strengthen public finance management. It sets out the priorities which inform the division of revenue as required by our Constitution between national, provincial, and local government for the next 3-year period. It outlines a framework for inclusive growth and, above all, inclusive transformation, and some of the political and structural changes we must make in order to create a better future for all. Above all, it invites Parliament and the people of South Africa to engage with the policy choices and decisions we must take in pursuing the aspirations and goals of our Constitution and the National Development Plan. In saying this, I need to caution that we should not expect to find straightforward answers to the many challenges we face. The budget process every year is a reminder that we face many difficult questions, but also we've made a lot of progress. And amongst the questions are how to make further progress in housing, clean water and sanitation for all, how to create equal access to health care, how to accelerate job creation and small enterprise development, how to expand access to further education and advance our technology capabilities. The economic environment this year is unusually difficult. We have also faced other extraordinary challenges. Slow economic growth means that employment has declined over the past year. Many businesses are in difficulties and households are struggling to make ends meet. In the lead up to this year's medium-term budget policy statement, we have been acutely aware of the depth of these stresses and the diverse interests and expectations of South Africans. Those who need to work, those who want to study, those who seek opportunities in their careers or businesses and for their families, those who dream of greatness in the arts, in sport, as builders or teachers, in business or in public service. I'm sure you caught some of that. All of us, leaders in business and labor, in churches and universities, workers, students and security officers, officials in government offices, municipalities and courts, our people in informal settlements and rural areas. All of us have high expectations of our government, of the economy, and indeed of our political system. We expect delivery. We expect change for the better. We expect progress in South Africa that benefits all its people. Above all, we expect a better future for our children, particularly through education and the entire education system. No one stakeholder, I'm sure you will agree, honorable members, and the public at large, can meet all of these aspirations alone. Yet, if each of us contributes our shared goals, if we can achieve greatness beyond we can certainly achieve greatness beyond our imaginings. There is a Pedi saying, I'm going to give it a hand. Titau sa shloka seboka, tishitwa kanare e shlotsa. Translated, it means, Lions that fail to work as a team will struggle to bring down even a limping buffalo. So either we work as a South African pack or we work as a divided pack. Either we get this buffalo, whether you like buffaloes or not is another matter, or we miss our chances. What we seek and more can be done if we collectively make the right choices, support confidence and investment in our economy, create a predictable and stable policy and political environment, and put the national interest first. Whether we do or not is up to us, not to the stars. Honorable Speaker, allow me to summarize the medium-term outlook. Global growth, as we all know, has slowed, affecting investment and trade not only in developing countries but also developed countries. Our own economic forecast for 2016 is 0.5%, not the 0.9% we thought earlier in the year. Rising up to 1.7% in 2017, if we do the right things to support investment and confidence, our economic recovery will certainly be more rapid. If we don't, then there are, as you will see in the MTPPS booklet, fair indications of the risks that we carry. Measured and balanced and careful fiscal consolidation will continue over this period, with the budget deficit declining from 3.4% this year to 2.5% in 2019-2020. Debt, which is a major target of the current period, is projected to stabilize at just less than 48% of GDP. Excuse me. Over the next 2 years, we propose to raise, you better sit up a little bit, we propose to raise an additional 43 billion rands through tax measures, 28 billion rands of which will be in the coming fiscal year. The expenditure ceiling will be lowered by 26 billion rands. So the logic, honorable members and the South African public, is very clear. If we do not grow the economy, if we do not collect our revenue properly, if we do not generate revenue in the economy, then we've got to take a squeeze, if you like, and a hit both on the tax side and on the expenditure side. Consolidated government expenditure, nonetheless, will still rise by 7.6%, which is above inflation in every year of the MTEF period. Additional allocations are proposed for post-school education, health services, and social protection. Infrastructure investment, mainly in energy, transport, and telecommunications, will amount to over 900 billion rands over the next 3 years. Efforts to improve supply chain management and ensure greater value for money in public service delivery will continue to be prioritized and is bearing results. Our central message, therefore, is that stable and sustainable public finances, alongside economic reforms, a transparent monetary policy guided by the Reserve Bank, can support a return to higher growth rates needed to achieve the goals of the National Development Plan. But macroeconomic tools are not enough. If we are to nurture the green shoots that many of us talk about in our economy, then our holistic package of measures must be implemented by all of us. No one measure will work. Our approach is to mobilize efforts across many fronts and to recognize a diversity of contributions in an open, multifaceted development framework. The medium-term budget policy statement reaffirms our approach to building a national consensus on development and transformation. Inclusive growth is our objective. Our macroeconomic and fiscal frameworks set limits to government debt and expenditure, as I've indicated, while supporting stronger public and private sector investment. Concerted implementation of our 9-point plan for the real economy is required, as is happening and needs to happen in a more intensified way. Growth and development rely on policy initiatives across a wide range of sectors and ministerial portfolios, excuse me, aimed at broadening participation and enhancing economic development. Structural transformation rests on a partnership between organized labor, government, and business, and all stakeholders in our society who share our common commitment to inclusiveness in our development path. We must intensify the national dialogue initiated early in the year by the President to seek common solutions and concrete actions to slow growth and poverty. Just as in our historic past, we need a collective, concerted effort. We must let hope and resilience triumph over despair and division. It's up to us. We and South Africa are indebted to the foresight, commitment to the national interest, and extensive collaboration of labor and business leaders. The stewardship of Mr. Jabu Mabuza on the business side, together with all the leaders of our various union federations, has been rock solid and absolutely indispensable in the last 9 months of our various ventures. We have Honorable members and South Africans, we do have a platform to build on. The green shoots I've referred to are there. People can see them. Of course, some of my economist friends see them in numbers, and some of my farming friends see them in the ground. The question is, can we nurture them? Can we grow them? Institution building is never complete. It has to adapt, and this is an important aspect of nurturing our economy, to new challenges and as various interests emerge. People make mistakes, but yet modernization and transformation must continue. In public finance management, work is in progress to reform our procurement reform, as I indicated, improve cost controls, and strengthen budgetary procedures. Let me refer to some of my colleagues and the work that they are contributing to this effort that we have as government. Minister Hadebe is leading efforts to improve our planning systems, including better engagement with social partners. Minister Ramatlodi has an immense oversight responsibility of the institutions of public service, particularly with the wage bill where it is. Following a 20% increase in government employment between 2006 and 2011, personnel expenditure now has to be contained through attrition in numbers, more moderate wage increases, and rationalization of the organizational structure of the state. Tough tasks. In promoting employment and economic growth, we have to address barriers to investment across every sector. Minister Oliphant oversees important initiatives to enhance our labor market institutions, manage industrial disputes better, and protect vulnerable workers. Our competition authorities are breaking down barriers to participation in our economy under Minister Patel's leadership. He even gets billions of rands in return. The work of the International Trade Administration Commission and Minister Davis's department is vital to our industrial progress and regional development. In all the portfolios of government, there are statutory or regulatory reforms under consideration that are about the pace of transformation and the inclusivity of our growth path. I have in mind Minister Motsoledi's guidance of the National Health Insurance Initiative, Minister Shabango's leadership on issues that affect women and gender equality, Minister Nkwinti's work on land distribution, agri-parks, and rural development, Minister Zokwana's promotion of our agriculture and forestry sectors, where there is still so much potential, both for job creation and export growth. But we have to manage the challenges, as we have, of drought and volatile commodity markets as we go forward. I also have in mind the need to work with our banks to give greater impetus to housing investment in cooperation with Minister Sisulu, the need for better urban planning and public transport investment under Minister Peters's guidance, further social security reform in partnership with organized labor, alongside improvements in the retirement funding industry and with Minister Dlamini's help, Minister Zwane's regulatory and social development challenges in our mining sector, Minister Kwele's responsibility for broadening access to telecommunications, Minister Zulu's small business development initiatives and programs. Remember, the watchword is inclusivity, honorable members, and the growth opportunities in tourism led by Minister Hanakam. The responsibilities of Minister Molewa and Minister Mokonyane in the context of our endorsement of the Paris Agreement on climate change and our water security challenges is also crucial. Honorable members, there are many other programs and policies, I've just highlighted a few, which are vital for our growth. With careful attention to sustainability and inclusivity, they will contribute to employment and broadening of economic opportunities. Properly designed and implemented, they will contribute to black economic empowerment and to strengthening localization and the growth of the South African enterprises. This is the way forward, if you like. Progress in all these areas will depend also on our clear commitment to the rule of law, transparency, accountability to this Parliament and the public, competitiveness, and value for money. It is time to reconfirm this social contract. It is time to rebuild the trust amongst us. It is time to make hard decisions, and of course, it is up to us. Some would say, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that despite this progress, we are a nation at a crossroad. As a nation, it appears as if that both politically and economically, we have important choices that we have to make ahead of us. I choose an old African revolutionary to inspire us, Amilcar Cabral, and his words, and I quote, "One type of struggle we regard as fundamental is the struggle against our own weaknesses." Just remember, we are human. Whatever difficulties the enemy may create, the aforementioned, our own weaknesses, is the most difficult struggle for the present and the future of our people, end of quotation. We must look frankly at ourselves and ask what is working for us, what is not working for us, and what needs to change. It is not just that our economic outlook is distressed and there is the possibility of a downgrade by rating agencies, the rising cost of debt. It is not just the most severe drought in decades has just struck us and we are beginning to recover and rising food prices was the consequence. It is not just the unsettling effects of various other events that are going on. These are considerable challenges, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker. But we can address them rationally, deliberately, and through the appropriate procedures. Much more disturbing and more difficult is the rise of our own communities and their voices of anger, disappointment perhaps, and discontent, spilling in the minority of cases into violence and destructive protests. Violent protests, I'm sure all of us will agree, signal unresolved social challenges, but also unacceptable behavior. They present immense challenges to the leadership of our higher education institutions, to municipalities, and to community organizations. Highly stressful demands are made on our police and security personnel. Destruction of property diminishes the inheritance of our children and their future generations. Our social contract, therefore, is under pressure. It is as if we have put unnecessary hurdles in our own way in trying to realize our potential and implementing our development plans. Policy statements are sometimes unclear or conflict, and that is something we are working at resolving. Commitments are made without clear resource plans. I'm sure we'll get more discipline on that front. Implementation is derailed by institutional instability. It's work that we need to do much more earnestly. And investment might be held back by uncertainties and erosion of trust. Vested interests, which is natural in any society, and political contestation interfere with decision-making at various levels. Amongst us in government, we are committed, just like leaders in business and civil society, to appreciate the challenges before us and to communicate that we are actively engaged in dialogue to confront these weaknesses that hold our progress back. And we owe it to all those involved to revitalize our capacity to negotiate agreements and to find enduring solutions. Fiscal policy alone will not solve all our problems. Honorable Deputy Speaker, since 1994, the size of the South African economy has more than doubled. The tax base has been substantially broadened. Education and health services have been extended. The child support grant introduced. Access to electricity widened. Water and sanitation supply has been expanded. Government debt was reduced as a percentage of GDP from 50% in 1995 to 27% in 2008. Yes, by an ANC government. And a budget surplus was recorded in 2006-2007 for the first time in decades. Then came the Great Recession from Wall Street. In 2009 and 2010, we were able to respond with an expansionary budget because we had the fiscal space. Alongside the Reserve Bank's reduction in its policy rates from 13.5% to 5%, we avoided the worst of the crisis that impacted on many other countries. But the structure of the global economy has now changed. Commodity prices are lower, trade competition has sharpened, our structural reforms and policy responses have been sluggish, and economic growth has remained below expectation. We now have to rebuild fiscal resilience. In other words, we need resources within the state in the case, and there will be the next crisis, and reverse the upward trend in the debt to GDP ratio unless we grow this economy. This has meant that a ceiling on expenditure increases has been in place since 2012, limiting growth to pre-announced medium-term plans. This year's MTBPS again limits planned expenditure for the period ahead in recognition of lower growth and the decline in forward estimates of revenue. Remember, lower growth, lower revenue. Careful prioritization has allowed key social services to expand moderately in real terms, it means above inflation, and cost savings have been achieved in spending on goods and services. You'll see the proof in the booklet. Taking into account the rise in food prices this year, I'm pleased to confirm that government has added an additional increase of 10 rands a month to the social grants with effect from October. The MTBPS outlines a measured, balanced fiscal consolidation. Now, what do we mean by this? We mean that we should not do so much of consolidation that we kill off growth completely. We should not raise so much of taxes that it has the same effect. Yet, we need to nurture these green shoots that we are talking about and maintain our debt and deficits and spending in a way in which we can credibly say to future generations, we've done well for you now. And so, let me spell out some of the things we intend to do. It continues to prioritize capital investment and stabilizes national debt as a share of GDP. In the current year, we now project 23 billion rands less revenue than the February estimate. Measures are likely to be needed in next year's budget to raise, as I said earlier on, revenue by some 28 billion rands. So all tips on how you want to raise taxes, please pass them on. While avoiding measures that would inhibit investment. The 2016 tax bills are tabled today, together with the MTBPS. These give effect to the special voluntary disclosure program that commenced on the 1st of October 2016, and also extend employment and learnership tax incentives. Given the demands on the legislative program, the carbon tax bill will be dealt with in 2017. Consultations on this and the proposed sugar tax are continuing. I know you're anxiously waiting for the sugar tax. The budget framework forms part of an enabling environment for investment-led growth, recognizing that a turnaround in the business cycle will create opportunities for expansion by South African firms. Infrastructure investment and financing of housing and enterprise development will give greater impetus to growth over the period ahead. As GDP growth accelerates, tax revenue will grow, and our capacity to finance public services will strengthen. By taking the right steps now and doing the right things now, we lay the foundations for progress ahead. In the international capital markets, we continue to succeed in raising debt. We borrow money, both from South Africans and from non-South Africans. And this year, we will be paying 147 billion rands in interest on the debt of 2 trillion rands that all of us owe the world. Despite the tough prevailing environment, South Africa was recently recognized as the best sovereign debt management operation and issuer in sub-Saharan Africa by the Global Markets publication. This is quite an achievement for the Treasury officials. Debt management initiatives over the past year have reduced government's refinancing risks and were supported by investors across all the major financial centers in Asia, Europe, and the United States. The World Bank has recently commended our debt management framework, indicating that South Africa is now, and I quote, better positioned to absorb fiscal shocks going forward. Honorable members, the MTBPS cannot provide all the details of every government undertaking, but it sets out the economic context, the trends in revenue and debt, and the framework of our spending plans for the next 3 years. These are not abstractions or ideological blueprints. These are the numbers that summarize the thousands of data points that Statistics South Africa draws on to monitor trends in our own economy. These are the actual money flows that pay for public services. These are the aggregated proposals of 163 national and provincial departments, 210 public entities, 257 municipalities. These are the work plans of 1 million or just over 1 million public servants and social grants that go to 16 million beneficiaries. It is clear to all South Africans prepared to serve the national interest that if we act together, we can advance and build on our 22 years of progress, revise the course where we have made mistakes, and continue to build a better future. Against the background of extraordinarily difficult circumstances, honorable members, the MTBPS brings a message of encouragement, resilience, and a delicate, as I said, and balanced approach to the fiscus and to the initiatives of government. Despite uncertainties in some areas, there is continuity and coherence in our leading policies and programs. Despite administrative challenges in some institutions, the architecture of government is sound, and there is progress in government as a whole. The Constitution, the rule of law, and social justice underpin our plans and budget proposals as our forefathers would have expected, and mothers. Our economic and infrastructure initiatives are the support measures we need to steady improvements in investment and growth over the period ahead. We must start believing, honorable members and South Africans, that we are indeed resilient, that we have sound foundations on which to build. But it is action to bring clarity where uncertainties remain, to address organizational weaknesses, to bring closure to infrastructure transactions, and accelerate trade and investment that brings real hope. Again, it's up to us. The MTBPS is also about inclusivity. The MTBPS tells a story of an economy in difficulties but not in decline, of a society that is intolerably unequal but is making progress in addressing its legacy of fragmented communities and discriminatory practices, of a government committed to promoting inclusive growth within a sustainable fiscal framework. I quote Martin Luther King. Go for it, go for it. Some people need to be woken up. And I can have a sip of water. As Martin Luther King said, and I quote, "Human progress is neither automatic or inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern concerns of dedicated individuals, I hope, like all of us," end of quote. By inclusive growth, Honorable Speaker, we mean opening up opportunities and broadening participation in an expanding economy. We mean meeting the service delivery demands and needs, not just demands, of marginalized communities. We mean decent work prospects for all, over time, and extending the frontiers of education to those who wish to learn. All too often in history, the benefits of progress have been appropriated by narrow elites. War, conquest, colonization, exclusive trading licenses, protection rackets, monopolization of markets, secret cartels, and discriminatory laws. There are so many ways in which wealth has been accumulated by the few, while inequality and class divisions have enriched those few. But we must not lose faith in our vision of a more just society and our resolve to attain it. No one, as Archbishop Makoba said to me recently, no one should be left behind in this progress. Social progress is complex, and the struggle for justice and equality has followed many different paths in different countries. Yet, there are some common themes in international experience. There are several dynamics of growth that can promote inclusivity, the quality of education, the pace and pattern of urbanization and housing development, industrial development and the expansion of employment, trade, and commerce, social protection services, including access to health care and social security, are about some of them. In each of these areas, there is immense potential for broad-based transformation and empowerment and contributing to social equality. But the lessons of history are also sobering. Progress towards equality is not guaranteed. In the words of Pope Francis, you can see I'm getting quite spiritual today, and I quote, "Human rights are not only violated by terrorism, repression, or assassination, but also by unfair economic structures that create huge inequalities," end of quote. Inclusive growth depends on how these structures are changed and who leads them and who gains from them. It depends on laws and policies, on social networks, which you all know, and administrative systems, and how markets are organized. Education will contribute immensely to equality. Cities will promote social and economic mobility, markets will broaden opportunities, public services will meet the needs of all if they are structured to be inclusive, if leadership is far-sighted, and if behavior is transparent, and if those values are shared amongst all of us. This has implications for our approach to social justice and transformation. In actively correcting for the injustices of the past, we have a choice between extracting privilege and wealth for the few or wider participation and broad-based, genuine empowerment of our masses. We have a choice between approaches that merely transfer wealth and approaches that create new enterprises, new assets, new jobs, and more open growth paths. Our Constitution, as the founding institution of our democracy, sets out the principles on which we must build. Everyone is equal before the law, and we are mandated to promote equality through legislative and other measures to protect or advance those disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. Human dignity, freedom, security, privacy, freedom of movement, trade, fair labor practices, access to housing, healthcare and social services, education, and just administrative action are amongst the rights protected in Chapter 2. The values and ethical standards that underpin good practice and integrity in public administration, we need to remind ourselves, are elaborated in Chapter 10. Fiscal and financial principles in Chapter 13 include an equitable division of revenue, measures to ensure transparency and competitive and cost-effective procurement systems, and controls over borrowing and guarantees. On these constitutional foundations, we are enjoined to build inclusive institutions and an open economy, including measures to address discrimination and promote equality. We are obliged to combat tendencies that are anti-competitive, restrictive, discriminate unfairly, take undue advantage of influence, or are hidden or fraudulent. No one should be left behind in this process. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the global recovery from the 2008 crisis, and I'm just going to look at what's happening globally now for a moment, remains precarious. Global growth is forecast at 3.1 for 2016 and 3.4 for 2017. Low interest rates and monetary expansion in the United States, Europe, and Japan have contributed to continued capital inflows into developing economies. However, this stimulus has led to limited impacts on investment in the real economy, trade, or the structural reforms needed to achieve more balanced, equitable global development. In Africa, its two biggest economies, Nigeria and South Africa, are growing too slowly, and so in 2016 it only grows at 1.4%. It's expected to grow to 3% next year. Low commodity prices have deterred investment, exposing the lack of diversity in many African economies. More rapid development would be achieved if progress could be made in infrastructure investment and integration of markets. Just 11%, and this number has been quoted on this platform many times, just 11% of Africa's trade is internal. Greater cooperation is needed between the larger economies, South Africa, Nigeria, Angola, and Kenya, for example, to energize the African economy. Now, why do these trends matter? The answer is that we live in a highly interconnected world. Global growth impacts strongly on developing country exports and investments. These trends, in turn, affect employment and earning opportunities for thousands of businesses and ordinary South Africans. South Africa's growth and development affects trade and employment opportunities in our neighboring countries and elsewhere. Low growth and fiscal difficulties have been seen in several African countries. And some of them have been asked to approach the international financial institutions for assistance. This undermines a country's ability to anchor its own policy course. By taking the right decisions, giving impetus to our own economic recovery, we can avoid the loss of fiscal sovereignty. I just want to pause for a moment. One of the proudest things we can say about the last 22 years of our democracy is that we never went to anybody for handouts as a country. No error of judgment should lead us in that direction, ever, is a commitment that we should make. Broader international collaboration is clearly vital. South Africa strongly supports plans by the group of 20 countries to prioritize economic development of the African continent in the years ahead. The South African outlook itself, as I indicated earlier, the MTBPS revises our growth to 0.5 for this calendar year, somewhat lower than the February estimate. For the current fiscal year, that's April to March next year, the estimate is 1%, slightly better. We currently expect growth to rise to 1.7% next year. Excuse me. With appropriate policies in place, we will see the recovery strengthen more rapidly, though investment has still to gain momentum. There have been a number of expansion projects in mining and manufacturing this year, which is the good news. We just need to multiply it by 100 times. The first steps have been taken to attract natural gas infrastructure investment into Richards Bay and Kucha. Domestic structural constraints continue to limit our growth potential. Our industrial structure is too concentrated, and infrastructure networks need to be better aligned to global growth prospects. As emphasized recently by the deputy head of the IMF, who's a great friend of South Africa, profit margins in South African companies are often built upon barriers that both hurt consumers and block potential competitors. More rapid and more inclusive growth requires concerted efforts to improve the investment environment, particularly for export-orientated and more employment-intensive manufacturing. In advancing inclusive growth and transformation, honorable members, we have to frame our policies and interventions in ways that reinforce confidence and investment. Our destiny, as I've repeated many times, is in our own hands. There are various initiatives that we could build on. I'll list a few. The City Support Program, which is bringing together urban planners, business leaders, government officials to strengthen investment incentives and address development challenges in the major metropolitan areas, regardless of which political party controls it. Under Minister Davies's guidance, Invest South Africa has established a facility to assist potential investors with procedures required to meet regulatory requirements. Alongside Minister Patel's strong measures to combat collusion and abuse of market dominance, conditions have been imposed on recent merger transactions that will open up retail space in spaza shops to smaller producers. Efforts of Minister Pando's department are contributing to the international competitiveness of South African industrial innovation, including fuel cells, titanium powder, medical devices, and composite materials. The construction of the Meerkat array is due for completion at the end of 2017. A round of congratulations to her. The Honourable Member, I beg your pardon. Over the medium term, resources have been reprioritized for the Small Business Department, including efforts to strengthen agencies that support small enterprises. To complement this, the CEO initiative has established a new fund to support the expansion of small firms, providing support through mentorship and market access. The business sector is also developing an internship program to improve the job readiness of young work seekers. Some 17 billion rands worth of investment and 5,000 jobs have been unlocked in the oceans economy. Licenses for oil and gas exploration have been issued as part of the sector growth strategy. Active work by the CCMA has brought greater stability in the workplace this year, and we should acknowledge that. And can we collectively congratulate our Labour colleagues? Honourable members, we can move the country forward. Speedy resolution of regulatory uncertainty, policy challenges enhances our development prospects. And our future is indeed in our own hands. There are several reforms in the financial sector that we want to report on. Since 2011, a substantial reform of our financial sector has been undertaken to make it safer and serve customers fairly. Of course, much more needs to be done. Legislation to give effect to the Twin Peaks Regulatory Reform Program is expected to be finalized by the end of the year. Excuse me. It will support inclusive growth in several ways. The costs of financial services will be reduced and made transparent. Unduly high costs currently reduce returns to savers and inhibit access of small business to credit, which is not good. Default regulations will simplify retirement saving options. More competition will be encouraged and innovation will be as well. 2 new exchanges were licensed this year, and regulations to create a more competitive environment for clearing and reporting trades are being finalized. Consultation will begin on a regime for licensing these trade platforms. Disclosure initiatives will make it easier for ordinary South Africans to understand complex financial products, and improvements in the financial regulation and reporting system will assist further in fighting corruption and money laundering while providing protection against fraud and systemic risks. I am pleased to confirm that the restructuring of the African Bank is complete. As congratulations again, particularly to the Reserve Bank and their financial stability role. Let's not leave them out. It was facilitated by a government-guaranteed loan issued by the Reserve Bank, which has been fully repaid with interest. And our congratulations are due to the curator. South Africa has soundly capitalized banks and strong financial institutions, which are essential in any modern economy. They are well placed to finance investment and enterprise development as our economic recovery gains momentum. We will have some debates with them about access to credit, and that is some dialogue that we must actually continue in a vigorous way. The MTBPS sets out revenue projections and proposed medium-term expenditure framework for the 3-year period ahead. So this is where we talk about division of revenue. The division of revenue within the main budget, taking into account the respective functions of the three spheres of government and their revenue-raising capacity is reflected. The revised allocations to provincial and local government for 2016 and 2017 are set out in the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. For the period ahead, the MTBPS proposes that provinces and municipalities should be allocated 43.4% of the total non-interest expenditure and 9.1% of the total for local government. So provinces 43%, local government 9% respectively, which means the biggest slice goes to national departments, which must account to you, honourable members, in terms of how they spend their money. Changes to this year's national department allocations are set out in the adjustments appropriation. The adjustments include provision for emergency water supplies and animal feed, and compensation for the effect of exchange rate depreciation on the Department of International Relations and Cooperation budget. In the present phase of our development, financing of education has to be our highest priority. I'm sure all of you will agree. We are especially mindful of the need to expand access to post-school education and opportunities, as both my colleagues, Minister Hadebe and Minister Nzimande, have been indicating. But this clearly is not enough. Our progress rests on improvements in the entire education system. Minister Nzimande has rightly emphasized that expanded opportunities in our universities cannot rely on government funding alone. Public expenditure on post-school education and training has in fact grown considerably faster than any other budget allocation in recent years, and this will continue. If you look at page 37 of the MTBPS when you get it, you will see a set of bars, and at this stage, the fastest growing expenditure is of course our interest on debt, but the second fastest growing expenditure is the expense on post-school education. And that's a huge achievement for this government. At the heart of the issue is that access has expanded faster than resources. As a result, many students face financial hardships that undermine their ability to succeed academically. In addition to the 16 billion rands added to higher education funding in the February 2016 budget, we therefore propose a further 9 billion rands for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme over the period ahead, raising its funding by over 18% a year. Over 8 billion rands will, to meet the costs of fee increases for students from households with incomes up to 600,000 rands. We will work with the corporate sector and financial institutions to expand bursaries, loans, work opportunities for students. In seeking a balanced and sustainable roadmap for student finance, we appreciate that graduates who go to earn high incomes will in due course contribute a share of these gains to the next generation. Pay back some of the money. Honourable Deputy Speaker, before I get to the social sector spending, I think it's important for us as Parliament to communicate very clearly that we understand the concerns of our students and their parents, that we appreciate their difficulties, that we will do everything that is possible to regain normality on our campuses. We do not want them to lose the 2016 academic year. We want the violence to stop. And one of the joys of the more recent period has been the spontaneous initiative taken from the private sector, academics, students, from various campuses to actually not just wait and say, I demand. They have come to various departments, including our own, with very well calculated options of how the fiscus and other resources can be combined to meet the needs that some of the students have. and we need some time in the coming weeks to evaluate the technical nature of those proposals, to see what's the best way forward in terms of the kind of roadmap that we are actually talking about. And we appreciate the kind of effort that they've put in. I mean, academics and students are at universities so that they can use their maths geniuses better than some of us can and come up with some answers for us. Honorable Speaker, social sector spending plans outlined in the MTBPS include the following: a further expansion in the HIV/AIDS program, which now reaches 3.5 million people, increases in the National Health Insurance Conditional Grant to continue the contracting of general practitioners and bring professional capacity into the school health program, a new conditional grant for the employment of social workers, an extended child support grant for orphans, and funding for 39,000 Funza Lushaka bursaries for future prospective teachers. In support of inclusive economic growth, spending plans over the medium term include the following: a proposed 45 billion rands to promote industrialization, economic transformation, and sustainable resource management, implementation of the Agri-Parks initiative to help small farmers with production, marketing, and training, a shift of housing funds to speed up investment in rental housing units, and the planning of catalytic projects in large towns and cities. Minister Sisulu can now smile. Establishment of the National Radioactive Waste Disposal Institute, funding for the N2 Wild Coast Road, the Moloto Road, and improved maintenance of both national and provincial roads. Minister Peters has joined. High-speed internet access in government buildings, and a supplementary 1 billion rands for the local government equitable share in 2018-19. Major infrastructure programs over the next 3 years include over 300 billion rands in transport and logistics projects, 240 billion rands in the energy sector, 137 billion rands in water and sanitation. Security of energy supply is a cornerstone of sustainable growth, as we've learned from our last few years of experience. And within the framework of the Integrated Resource Plan, current and revised, it has been confirmed that ESCOM will take the lead in the nuclear power initiative in respect of ownership and operation. The Treasury will work with Minister Brown's department and ESCOM to ensure that the scale and phasing of the program are in South Africa's best interests, and that procurement arrangements are transparent and compliant with the law. Our approach to energy security and to meeting climate change commitments also includes a substantial renewable energy program. Contrary to the views of some, these are sound, sensible, long-term investments, consistent with our climate change commitments. A total of 64 projects are already in progress, bringing investment, jobs, clean energy, and community development. Minister Jumat Pedersen and the National Energy Regulator have approved another 37 independent power projects. Once ESCOM has signed the offtake agreements, which they are required to in terms of their commitment to government, a further 58 billion rands in investment and some 4,800 construction jobs will commence, bringing 2,354 megawatts of capacity to the electricity grid. Now, provinces. A joint action plan for fiscal consolidation has been agreed with the provincial finance MECs. We've either spoken to or visited 7 of the 9 provinces since the extended cabinet meeting where the fiscal framework and division of revenue were agreed. Of course, not everybody will agree to everything. If there's a little cut somewhere, we're going to have a bit of feedback, shall we call that politely. It includes the following: a containment of administrative personnel expenditure while protecting education and health staff, and allocations for medical supplies and essential services. In other words, protect that source of money. Improved revenue collection. Provinces must do more to collect revenue that is due to them. Rationalization and closure of redundant and underperforming programs and entities. The intensification of cost containment measures in keeping with the national guidelines. As I indicated, over the past few weeks, the Deputy Minister and I have been in touch, either directly or through digital mechanisms, with 7 of the 9 provinces, and have consulted them on their finances, shared our macroeconomic outlook, and the nature of the fiscal framework. There has been good progress in expenditure management in provinces this year, and with you, I need to congratulate provincial leaders for taking tough steps needed to remain within the agreed budget limits. Give them a hand. It is clear that efforts to address misallocations of resources will yield substantial gains. In other words, there is still spare, as we all know, fat or some reserve that's available. We need to now go ahead and find it. Provinces transfer about 9 billion rands a year to 71 public entities currently, often for duplicate functions and high personnel costs. Efficiency improvements in infrastructure spending are needed, building on the standards for infrastructure procurement and delivery management issued by the CPO will help them to go a long way. Similarly, in local government, far more can be done to improve financial performance, financial management, and delivery of basic services. Additional cost-saving measures for municipalities was issued by the Treasury in March 2016. These include savings on travel, consultants, catering, office furniture, events, and staff benefits, and these will shortly be given force in regulation. Our newly elected municipal leaders have a vital role to play in ensuring delivery of reliable services to all of our people and improving the quality of spending. This requires zero tolerance for corruption and wastage of public resources. Improved revenue management and better maintenance of infrastructure. More rapid investment in housing, public transport, and industrial development in our cities is central to faster and more inclusive growth, as I pointed out earlier on. We will meet with the mayors of our metropolitan municipalities shortly to hear their plans and suggestions for practical partnerships, both on the financial side and for meeting the basic needs of their population. National Treasury is also working towards the implementation of a new municipal standard charter of accounts in all 257 municipalities from July 2017. This is a major reform that will improve the transparency and comparability of accounts. Now you can take one municipality and compare its performance to another, allowing for stronger monitoring and oversight of municipal finances. In keeping with our commitment to transparency in the public finances, Treasury has launched a new local government budget data portal today called Municipal Money. In other words, the whole of South Africa can get whatever information they require about a municipality's spending. And that should create, I hope, some confidence between citizens and councillors for a start and the officials. It provides citizens and other stakeholders with access to comparable, verified information on the financial performance of each municipality. In some ways, it builds on the Back to Basics program. It aims to promote transparency and citizen engagement by providing information about municipal spending in a simple, accessible format. Now, supply chain management is a major issue. We've indicated, Deputy Speaker, in the past that supply chain management reforms and transparency are important elements in achieving value for money and combating corruption. My own political organization, at its 52nd National Conference, resolved the following, and I quote, "Corruption is a systemic and institutional phenomenon involving all sectors of society and undermines democratic processes and corrupt governance and erodes social cohesion and values. Measures to combat corruption must be dealt with both by those who are corrupt as well as those who are corrupted." And that's a good signal to all of us and standard to uphold. The Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, in just over 3 years of existence, has taken bold steps to modernize our systems and combat abuses. A public procurement bill is being finalized. It will strengthen accountability and oversight in supply chain management while providing flexibility and promoting empowerment, small enterprise development, and job creation. The preferential procurement regulations are being revised to ensure that at least 30% of government procurement goes to designated groups, including small and medium enterprises, cooperatives, and rural and township enterprises. Contracts are being renegotiated with airlines, hotel groups, the same airline I'm supposed to be responsible for anyway, software suppliers, pharmaceutical companies, property owners, and construction firms. This aims to achieve savings of 25 billion rands a year by 2018-19. There's an e-tender portal that has been introduced in May last year. It has over 80 billion rands in tenders that are on the portal for everyone to see transparently, saving 650 million rands a year in printing and advertising costs. That's quite an achievement. There is a central supplier database which was launched 1st of September 2015, which significantly simplifies procurement administration, and over 340,000 suppliers have already registered on this site. I need to urge again that legitimate suppliers must be paid on time in full. Officials, I'm afraid, are doing huge damage to businesses in South Africa by not paying in time and not paying in full. Confidence in government, honorable members, is eroded and businesses are sabotaged if payments, as I said, are delayed, whether through poor planning, administrative shortcomings, or other motives. I want to quote the Honorable Kofi Annan, who wrote in a foreword to the 2003 United National Convention Against Corruption document. And in this he says, "In promoting development and making the world a better place for all, we are called upon to reaffirm the importance of core values such as honesty, respect, rule of law, accountability, and transparency." Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, the MTBPS includes a fiscal risk statement that I referred to earlier on. For the first time, I encourage honorable members to read it carefully. It highlights several concerns, so all is not rosy. Whilst there are lots of opportunities, we need to be aware of our risks. The impact of slower GDP growth on revenue and debt sustainability is a risk. Unplanned expenditure pressures, including growth in the government wage bill or other programs, is a risk. The financial position of several state-owned companies is a risk. The unfunded liability of the Road Accident Fund, similarly so. And the National Development Plan requires more rapid growth, and clearly this is a precondition for achieving inclusive development and transformation. The MTBPS emphasizes that low growth is not inevitable. In other words, we could do better if we take the right decisions and are inclusive and ensure more rapid progress is undertaken by ourselves. Moderation in government personnel spending, and the number currently, honorable members, sits somewhere between 37 and 40% of our non-interest expenditure is going on personnel spending. That these steps are in progress to improve. In addition to that, we need steps to ensure that procurement and supply chain management are both managed in the right way to ensure the right kind of fiscal path, and as a precondition for effective and cost-effective public service delivery. The reform of our state-owned companies, led both by the President and Deputy President, is similarly both about addressing financial vulnerabilities and about long-term investment and broadening participation in our economy. Guiding principles for oversight of state-owned companies have been agreed by the Interministerial Committee led by the Deputy President. These reforms are aimed at achieving stabilization, coordination, collaboration, rationalization, and consolidation, and more particularly, improved governance. The guidelines include development of a shareholder management framework, the principles for private sector participation to promote higher levels of investment in economic infrastructure, a framework to inform the board appointments to boards, which goes all over the show at the moment, separation of costs related to the developmental mandates from the commercial mandates of state companies, and there are a number of processes underway to rationalize state entities. These include the merger of the housing development finance institutions, the appointment of transaction advisors on restructuring of the state airlines, and the possible introduction of a strategic equity partner and rationalization of government shareholdings in the telecommunications sector. Full-strength boards have been appointed at SAA and the Post Office. These reform efforts will improve financial sustainability and enhance the delivery capacity of state-owned companies in the interest of inclusive growth. In respect of the Road Accident Fund, NEDLAC has completed its work on the proposed Road Accident Benefit Scheme, which will provide a more equitable and affordable benefit arrangement. Read the risk statement and see how the risks in the RAF grow over the next few years. Legislation now needs to be taken through Parliament and to round up this piece of work. So as I conclude, honorable members, allow me to summarize the following. Inclusive growth is our objective. Our macroeconomic and fiscal framework sets limits to a government's debt and expenditure while supporting stronger public and private sector investment. Aggressive implementation of our plans, the 9-point plan included, for the real economy is required. Policy initiatives across the wide range of sectors and portfolios are in progress, aimed at broadening participation and enhancing economic development. Transformation, inclusive transformation, rests on a partnership between all stakeholders who share our commitment to inclusiveness in our development path. The national dialogue to seek common solutions and concrete actions to reverse slow growth and poverty has to be intensified. If we do the right things, we will achieve a just and fair society founded on human dignity and equality. Our Constitution binds us as citizens, as government, business, labor, communities, youth, and students to work together to give effect to this social contract. It enjoins us to recognize the injustices of our past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. Our current challenge and challenges place an extraordinary responsibility on all of us. This is a turning point in which, if we make the right choices, politically and economically, we can achieve faster and more inclusive growth. It is a moment in which we need action, economic, social, and political, but it is also a time in which we must reflect carefully. We need to confront long-standing inequalities in our society and forms of domination without creating new ones. We need to widen opportunities without capitulating to opportunism. This is time for us to engage in taking our hard-won democracy significantly forward. The voices of workers, activists, business owners, and ordinary citizens of all walks of life have been heard and spoken. So many South Africans, representatives from each of the sectors, have contributed to our engagements on our growth and development challenges this year. Allow me to thank those who have joined us in this discourse nationally and internationally in local communities and forums. Courage, hard work, systematic organizing are the ingredients we need to meet the challenges that we face. I need to acknowledge the special role that non-governmental organizations and our faith-based organizations and communities continue to play in being our conscience, in ensuring that we promote justice and accountability and peaceful resolution to our challenges. Their moral guidance is a cornerstone of the struggle for freedom and the fight against corruption. Nkosi, Umanyano, Gamandla. Those who are called upon to serve in public institutions have an added responsibility to work with integrity, honesty, and accountability. and to ensure that their efforts are directed towards the shared interest of all South Africans. Put simply, this means that public funds must not be diverted for private ends. All citizens are entitled to demand accountability and integrity from those who serve them, and that includes all of us. As Amartya Sen writes, and you know him very well as a philosopher, in The Idea of Justice, while institutions and rules influence the scope and course of our actions, it is human lives, their experiences, and realization of their potential that is of primary importance to citizens. Fellow South Africans, the global trends and our national realities must be recognized, as I've said, frankly and transparently, so that we can assess both the opportunities and risks which present themselves in our historic journey of inclusive transformation and social justice. 55 million South Africans want to see and experience real progressive change in their lives and continuous progress. We owe it to them to deliver that. For change, there has been since 1994. Constitutional democracy, political freedom, economic growth, expansion of public services, rising living standards for many, but not for all. And so this MTBPS and the commitment that we are all making signals a renewed commitment to inclusiveness in our growth and development strategies, so that indeed no one is left behind. This MTBPS is tabled at a time of global uncertainty and uncertainty around us, but also at a time of hope and of opportunity that we could seize if we choose to. Allow me to thank the following for their guidance and contribution. Mr. President, yourself, the Deputy President, members of Cabinet, the Ministers' Committee on the Budget, members of Parliament, the chairs of the various committees, the provincial premiers, and the finance MECs, and those few municipal mayors that we've had an opportunity to interact with, to share the fiscal responsibilities. A particular thanks to the various institutions in the Reserve Bank, the Revenue Service, other members of the finance family, all of whom are essential cogs as they perform their individual legislative and constitutional responsibilities to help us to deliver a better South Africa for future generations. In particular, I want to thank Deputy Minister Jonas and Director General Fuzile and the DDGs. We've worked under very difficult, arduous, challenging conditions to deliver, I believe, a progressive and hopeful MTBPS. And their commitment to this country and to this cause has been a very crucial part of putting together this very well-measured, well-balanced fiscal and economic approach. South Africa owes them a great debt. So let me conclude by quoting an old hero for most, if not all of us, Oliver Tambo. We have a vision of South Africa in which black and white shall live and work together as equals in conditions of peace and prosperity. End of quote. I go back to my friend the buffalo. Titau se shloka, siboka dishitwa, kenare eshlotsa. Lions that fail to work as a team will struggle to bring down even a limping buffalo. So finally, President Mandela, if I had to adapt his words, with freedom comes responsibilities. We dare not linger, for our long walk is not yet ended. Ngayabonga. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. The medium-term budget policy statement will be referred to the Standing Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee on Appropriations to consider in accordance with their respective mandates. The revised fiscal framework will be referred to the Standing Committee on Finance for consideration and report. The rates and monetary amounts and amendments of the revenue laws will be referred to the Standing Committee on Finance for consideration and report. The Taxation Laws Amendment Bill will be referred to the Standing Committee on Finance for consideration and report. The